In the annals of history, few names echo with such thunderous force as Alexander the Great. His story is not just a tale of conquest, but of a vision that sought to unite the known world under a single, enlightened empire. It's a saga of ambition, genius, and a destiny forged in the heart of ancient Macedonia. Our journey begins not on a battlefield, but in the tranquil gardens of the Mieza Temple. Here, a young prince, barely a teenager, sat at the feet of the greatest mind of the age, Aristotle. The philosopher taught Alexander more than just logic and science. He instilled in him a profound curiosity about the world, a love for culture, and the Homeric ideal of the hero. This education shaped the boy who would become a king, teaching him that true greatness lay not just in power, but in knowledge and vision. Even as a boy, Alexander's extraordinary character was undeniable. The legend of Bucephalus stands as a testament to his insight. When all seasoned horsemen failed to tame the magnificent but wild stallion, the young prince noticed something they had all missed. The horse was afraid of its own shadow. With calm confidence, Alexander turned Bucephalus towards the sun, so his shadow fell behind him. He spoke gently, stroked its neck, and swung himself onto its back. In that moment, a bond was forged that would carry them across continents. The boy who understood the fears of a horse would one day understand the hearts of men and the tides of battle. In 336 BC, following the assassination of his father, King Philip II, Alexander ascended to the throne at just 20 years old. With the Greek city-states united behind him, he turned his gaze eastward, towards the colossal Persian Empire, a rival that had threatened Greece for generations. His goal was not merely revenge, but the fulfillment of a destiny he believed was his to claim. The climax of his Persian campaign came on the dusty plains of Gaugamela. The Persian king, Darius III, had amassed an army of staggering proportions, with estimates reaching 250,000 soldiers, including Scythian chariots and war elephants. Alexander's Macedonian forces were outnumbered at least 5-1. The fate of his entire expedition, and perhaps Western civilization itself, rested on this single day. On the eve of the battle, his generals urged a night attack to counter the Persian numbers. But Alexander refused. "I will not steal my victory," he declared. He would face his enemy in the light of day, with courage and strategy as his greatest weapons. As the sun rose on October 1st, 331 BC, the battlefield was a sea of dust and steel. Darius had positioned his forces in a massive, deep line, intending to envelop Alexander's smaller army. But Alexander was a master of tactics. He advanced with his army in an oblique formation, drawing the Persian cavalry on the left flank further and further out, stretching their line thin. It was a high-stakes gamble. He was intentionally weakening his own left flank to create an opportunity. The Persian Scythian chariots charged, a terrifying wave of whirling blades. But Alexander had prepared his infantry. They opened their ranks, creating channels for the chariots to pass through harmlessly, where they were then dispatched from the sides. As the Persian left wing overextended in pursuit of Alexander's flank, the decisive moment arrived. A gap appeared in the Persian center, right next to Darius's personal guard. This was the opening Alexander had been waiting for. Leading his elite companion cavalry, he formed a wedge and charged directly at the gap, a thunderous spearhead aimed at the heart of the Persian army, Darius himself. The shock was immense. The Persian lines, stretched and disorganized, began to crumble under the ferocity of the Macedonian assault. Darius, seeing the fearless young king charging directly at him, lost his nerve. He fled the battlefield, and with his flight, the morale of the entire Persian army shattered. The disciplined Macedonians, despite being vastly outnumbered, achieved one of the most decisive victories in military history. The Persian Empire, the largest the world had ever known, was now his. With Persia conquered, Alexander was not content. His tutor Aristotle had spoken of the great ocean at the end of the world, and Alexander was determined to see it. He pushed his army, a force that had marched and fought for over 8 years, further east, into the known lands of India. They crossed the treacherous Hindu Kush mountains and the mighty Indus River, entering a world of dense jungles, monsoon rains, and powerful kingdoms unlike any they had ever faced. In India, he fought his last great battle at the Hydaspes River against King Porus and his army of war elephants. It was a brutal, hard-won victory. Alexander, impressed by Porus's courage, not only spared his life but made him an ally, extending his kingdom. Yet, this campaign marked a turning point. After years of relentless marching and fighting, his weary soldiers, standing at the edge of the Ganges plain, finally refused to go further. They had reached their limit. For the first time, Alexander had to relent to the will of his men. With a heavy heart, he agreed to turn back. The journey home was as perilous as any battle. One part of his army sailed through the uncharted waters of the Persian Gulf, while Alexander led the rest through the brutal Gidrogen Desert. Thousands perished from heat and thirst in a grueling test of endurance. In 323 BC, Alexander returned to the magnificent city of Babylon, the new capital of his vast empire. He was now the master of a realm that stretched from Greece to India. He began planning for the future, new expeditions into Arabia, the further integration of Persian and Greek cultures, and the administration of his new world. He encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women, himself taking a Persian wife, in a grand ceremony to unite his peoples. But this new chapter was never to be written. After a prolonged banquet and drinking party, Alexander fell gravely ill with a fever. For 12 agonizing days, the strongest man in the world grew weaker and weaker. His loyal soldiers, who had followed him to the ends of the earth, filed past his bed for a final farewell. When his generals asked him to whom he would leave his empire, he is said to have whispered, "To the strongest." On June 11, 323 BC, Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, hegemon of Greece, pharaoh of Egypt, and king of Asia died. He was just 32 years old. The cause of his death remains one of history's great mysteries. Was it malaria, typhoid fever, or was he poisoned by a rival? We may never know for certain. His death unleashed chaos. Without his singular leadership, his vast empire immediately fractured as his generals, the Diadochi, warred amongst themselves for power, carving up the world he had conquered. And yet, Alexander's legacy endured. His conquests shattered the old world and paved the way for a new one. He spread Greek language, culture, and thought across the East, initiating the Hellenistic Age, a vibrant fusion of civilizations that would shape the Mediterranean and the Middle East for centuries, and whose influence would eventually be inherited by Rome. Alexander lived a life of impossible speed and scale, a brilliant flame that burned twice as bright for half as long. He was a military genius, a visionary leader, and a man driven by an insatiable desire to reach the horizon. In just over a decade, he redrew the map of the ancient world, and in doing so, became more than a king. He became a legend.